Hey folks, Valentin the Mad here, and today we'll be looking at the destruction in maximum action. So what we have here is basically gonna be very much like what we have in Stranglehold, in a sense that the responsiveness of each given level is gonna vary basically on how many props you can destroy and how detailed the response is gonna be. So for example, this level I think is the only one where you actually have structures you can bring down. And as you can see, pretty bloody fun ones. Towers is one of the most fun things ever to bring down. And you know, you can just shoot this propane tank and make it all just go boom. But in my opinion, the most fun is just to shoot the pillars and see it collapse slowly and beautifully. And by the way, with the guy we have on top, if you remember the gore video, so there is a stumbling mechanic. Once the tower starts coming down, you actually have the enemy start stumbling, which looks very cool. As you can see, though, we do have an issue, and I think every single tower has it. This floating plank. It can be brought down, but every single tower has it. Now what I usually do is just eliminate everyone so that no one accidentally hits this propane tank. But in the case of those guys, actually the biggest danger for them is not even the propane tank, it's them themselves. I'll show you. Yep. Yeah, they have a tendency to just shoot their own tower accidentally, and it's kind of beautiful. But I want this guy just collapsing. And yeah, like, it's just fun. The tower collapse, the ragdoll. Gotta say, just towers are, in pretty much every game, are a very fun structure to bring down. Some trees will respond as well. This one requires a few shots, but here we go. Once again, not like Crysis tier detail, not expecting it here, but it will come down. And some vegetation can be set on fire. But not all, as you can see, like some plants can, others can't, like this bush here, can't respond, and there are a few more props we have here, like this stand, but some things are gonna be unresponsive, like this thing. Do I have perhaps any more of those propane tanks? Should have one there. Let's burn some more plants. So yeah, so as you can see, the response is nothing fancy, it just gets darker. Here we actually do have a very heavy tanning response, but you know, it does make a difference when basically the key to have a responsive experience in a game like this, you know, you have your constraints, but you don't want everything in between the constraints to be responsive. It's gonna matter more in the indoor levels, but it does apply here as well. So, some more of the tower fun. You can see he's kind of like stumbling there, like the moment I hit the pillar, gets into the stumbling state. And when it starts coming down, it's gonna look quite nice. And as you can see here, if you have that itch for a Crysis-like experience, you know, it isn't, of course it isn't quite it, but we do have those huts and they are quite fun to blow up. Once again, some more burning vegetation. But as I was saying, only some trees can come down. This one can't. I can shoot rockets at it all day. This one too. As I was saying, in a game like this you really want like as much of the environment in between the constraints to be responsive. You know, first time I came here and saw those stone walls, I figured those are gonna be entirely unresponsive. Not quite. Not quite, as you can see. But there actually is a different issue here. They're gonna be breaking way too easily. So, what you would want is actually, if possible, to, if you have like for example a shotgun or just a rifle, you take multiple shots in a section, having just that specific section break off, but if that detail isn't possible, a preferable option would be just to have it respond only on something heavier like this RPG. Now there is actually one more type of towers here, but those aren't quite as fun to bring down as the other ones. And I think the key to making those feel more fun, as you can see, just isn't really as exciting as those. So I think the key to making that be more fun is just having those break into more parts, basically. And just a little bit more of that hot destruction, which is a lot of fun. I wonder if I can trigger that propane tank if I shoot like there. Yeah, yes I can. Nice. A little bit too far, but if I go for example here... Here we go, yeah. And can this? Yeah, it can. Some things need a little bit more convincing, as you can see. Now back to my Suzuki DRZ for just a few more towers to bring down. And look, no hands. All I can say is those are just fun. Yeah. We have ourselves one more. Here we go. Oh, he's still he's still stumbling. I guess there is one way to help him out. As for the Indoors Showcase, I'm gonna be doing that in this level too, and really because it is one of the more responsive levels we have in the game, and might as well have the showcase where it's gonna be more fun. So here's a look at a mainly untouched before. Just a bit of furniture moved, a new organic prop, some paint job. Yeah, it is just paint, nothing else. It's modern art, kind of an artsy splatter pattern. So do note at the vase, to note specifically at the board, we actually have a pretty cool touch with the board. So, for the most part, what you're gonna be having, yeah, we even have an intact vase to showcase. Props are gonna either break into a bunch of pieces, like the vase here, or they're gonna turn into a single damaged variation. One per prop, and there is no fracturing here or anything along those lines. The more complex ones, as far as I saw, are only in that previous level. But we do have a pretty cool touch with the board, so you can actually delete individual leaflets. And there's nothing particularly advanced or complex here. You basically delete a decal, spawn a bunch of particles, but things like that do very much make a difference. And yeah, the particle effect is a bit exaggerated for a single leaflet, but whatever, you know, just whatever. But the one point of feedback I would actually have here is spawning some torn pages on the ground for that. It's perhaps gonna make more sense with the bookshelf, so as you can see, yeah, this just makes a little bit more sense with the particle effect, so this thing is kind of just asking for some torn pages. And you know, it doesn't have to be on the level of detail of Siwego. If you remember that, had like some pretty impressive leaflet mechanics. Doesn't have to be that, just a decal here on the ground. Now let's get rid of the organic props and show a few bits here. He doesn't want to take part in the organic props showcase. That's okay, that's a different video. Maybe it does, maybe it does. Anyway, so what you're gonna be having here is also like this bench. It's gonna break apart into a bunch of pieces. But the chairs, so I'll spare you the long explanation of stuff, but basically they have a ridiculously high damage threshold. And when they do break, eventually, either with massively repeated shooting by the shotgun or by explosives, explosives are the easier method, they basically despawn without leaving any remains. As you've seen, we had my grenade, we had this electric box of death, and that vanished pretty quickly, but as you've seen, like they have just a massive damage threshold. And there is actually a fun touch with those pillars, so you can chip them away. Ah yeah, it's the connecting bit, okay, gotcha, it is the connecting bit. So you can chip them away, and actually, if you use something like a pistol, you actually have a milder damage variation. But if you keep shooting it, if you've seen the video on organic props, it's gonna be very much like the head damage. And here we actually have a bit of an issue. Not gonna dwell on it too much, here's a quick look at the before. Perhaps they can do me a showcase, yes, so as you can see, the props just get moved around way too easily, way too weightlessly. But in a game like this, actually, I'm not gonna dwell on it too much, because as I mentioned, there is no fracturing. And by the way, like, if you just clip it with a part of the pellets, you're also gonna be having just the damaged variation. And once again, small touches like that do matter. So, as I was saying, if you could, for example, have fracturing for objects, what you would really want is perhaps the chairs, like that line of chairs we had here, serve initially as kind of an obstacle that wouldn't be kicked around nearly as easily. And you know, if you just throw an explosive, some would break entirely immediately, others would break partially. But with the mechanics we got here, having them be sent flying, having them kicked around, yeah, not a fan of that, but it isn't a huge deal. And there is actually one more very cool touch here, if you've played it you know. This stuff. Does it make a huge difference? No, but things like that, touches like that do very much matter. You know, you could just have it break. You could have, I think like here, yeah, just basically decal, nothing. But you have both the breakage, you have it swinging, and when you see it, this kind of thing does very much matter. And in a game like this, just to reiterate, what you really want to have is, once again, as many props be responsive, have both as much of the environment respond, and of course have many props scattered around that will react. You don't want to have detail in the response, not a huge factor here, but perhaps in newer versions of the engines it should be more possible than it was here. You do very much want those small touches that do make a big difference. And lastly, the aftermath. The broken objects, and what should be a factor, in most games it isn't, is small bits of debris. Small wood chunks, small chips of concrete, broken glass, shell castings. Those things do very much matter. And particularly in a game like this, where you go from arena to arena, you could eventually have the cleanup happen when you move far enough, because you really have no reason to go back, so might as well, you move a bit forward and just clean up the entire previous arena. So, in conclusion for this game specifically, I can't really recommend it for just the response alone, destruction or gore, but if you dig the overall vibe you see here, perhaps the gameplay as seen on other channels, I think you will very much enjoy it, and there is substance about the gore and destruction, just not to the point where I can recommend the game based on response alone. And just a final, more personal point, a maximum action 2 with graphics in the vein of 2004-2005, the PS2 era, with a bigger emphasis on destruction, would be something I would hugely enjoy. So I hope you enjoyed the video, do let me know how you feel in the comment section, and subscribe, there's a lot more content coming your way. I'll see you on the next one.